Hi, I'm Peyton. This is Jarred. This is Kidtalk.
Kidtalk is where we interview people who make games, design games,
And pretty much anyone who likes games.
Yeah, and today we're interviewing Phil Reed, who's the CEO of Steve Jackson Games.
Hi.
Hello.
My first question is, what is a CEO, and what do you do as a CEO?
Well, we're a very small company, and the CEO of Steve Jackson Games does far more varied tasks than the CEO of a much larger corporation. CEO is Chief Executive Officer, and my job is to work with Steve Jackson, who is the owner, to plan the company's future and coordinate everything we're going to make for the next year to 2 years. Sometimes we have projects planned farther out, but most of our focus, like right now, we're working on the second half of 2021. All of our new games that are going to stores for January through June of 2021 are already at print, and some are already on a boat and on the way here.
How did you become CEO of Steve Jackson Games?
Just a lot of time in the wrong place and fell into it. I started working with Steve Jackson Games in 1999 as a production artist, which meant I designed the layout for books and games. I did cover art and some interior art. And the longer I worked with the company, the more skills I developed and the more opportunities Steve gave me. And I've done almost everything involved in creating games. The areas that I don't personally get involved in are the accounting side. That's just not one of my skills. And the warehousing and shipping of games. And the warehouse would back me up on this. I'm not really allowed in there because I tend to cut myself accidentally on things, including playmats of all things, which I didn't even know you could get hurt on.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm extremely old. I've had glasses since I was 7, which has now been over 40 years of wearing glasses. So that tells you how old I am. Let's see. I enjoy toys, games, art, music. I get up early in the morning, start working, and work probably 14 to 15 hours each day, and go to sleep and do it again.
That seems like a lot of work.
Same amount of work that Daddy does.
It's what it requires, and when you really love what you do, a lot of times it doesn't feel like work. And I do both work for Steve Jackson Games, and then as a hobby, I write and publish things myself. So I try to keep busy.
Can you tell us what your favorite part of your job is?
Definitely my favorite part is thinking of new things for us to make. Either new game ideas, new dice ideas, just generally having a really fun idea, taking it to the team and watching as they turn it into something that's more than just an idea. That is absolutely the best part of this job.
Do you have any ideas for games that you can tell us about?
I don't know if I have any ideas I could tell you right now, but I could tell you about some of the games that we've created using the basic process of me talking to the team and them making things happen.
Okay.
So a really good example of that is Mars Attacks, the dice game. I was out for a walk one morning and was thinking about the Mars Attacks trading cards, and we had a relationship with Topps. I knew the licensing partner over there, and I had some ideas for a game, so I emailed him while I was walking, and he emailed back within a few minutes and said, yes, go for it. So I wrote up a document, like about 1,000 words, that was the rough core outline of the game, how it would work. I sent it over to our development team, and within about 2 days, we were playing the game. And then over the course of 2 weeks, we kept playtesting and revising and improving until we had a very strong mock-up. And we took that to New York Toy Fair and did very well with it. So my involvement in that was mostly just, here's a design document outlining how I think the game should work, and then playtesting as they did the real work. My job's easy. I just have to have ideas, and coming up with ideas is simple. The hard part is the work they do to actually turn those ideas into something that we can sell.
Can you tell us about Mars Attacks? We don't have it.
Okay, so Mars Attacks was originally a trading card set from the 1960s, and it was controversial because it was very gruesome and gory, and it's Martians invading and attacking the Earth. It's had multiple reboots, relaunches over the years. Topps, the publisher of the trading cards, keeps doing things with it. And 2014, I think, was the 50th anniversary, and that was when we created and published the game. And the game itself came about because I had an idea for taking our zombie dice game and adding just a little bit of a spin to it. So the Mars Attacks dice game feels a bit like zombie dice in its core dice mechanic, but there are cards that are different cities that, as the Martians, you're going out and trying to destroy these cities, and you want to roll Martian heads, and the humans are fighting against you, and you don't want to roll nukes, because if you get too many nukes, they blast you out and you lose your turn. But then there are also monuments that you can go to and have your picture taken, and that'll score you points too, because the Martians are going from different places to either destroy it or have their picture taken and then destroy it. It's very silly. I think it's technically out of print now over the last year or so.
So either way, you have to destroy it.
Oh,
Either
you're
way,
going
you
to
have
destroy everything.
Monuments.
You're Martians attacking the Earth. You've got to destroy everything.
Though it seems kind of weird, the picture in my head, just a Martian. You see a Martian walking through the city, and then it just stops by a monument, and it's just like, and it destroys the monument behind it.
Got to get your selfie somewhere.
But is the Martian Attacks trading card game like Pokemon cards?
No, they are. It's not collectible. The Mars Attacks brand started as a trading card set back in the 1960s, where it was just like a story on cards. And the game we made is just inspired by that, but it is not in any way collectible cards. I'll ship you a copy. You'll see what it's like.
Okay. What's the hardest part about being a CEO?
Definitely the stress of managing dozens of people and trying to keep the company profitable and successful enough that we can keep everyone's jobs safe. This year's been a little more challenging than usual, but I am happy to say that the team has done an incredible job of keeping games flowing, keeping games selling. We haven't had to lay anybody off despite the problems this year, and we are currently still profitable for the year. So I consider that a win, that we're able to keep everybody's jobs and we can continue making games even though most of us have been working from home for almost 8 months now.
What have the changes been because of everything happening this year?
The biggest change for us was a significant drop in distribution sales earlier this year when local stores had to close and some of our distributors had to close. That meant that we didn't have a way to sell games to stores because stores weren't buying and selling games. So we had to shift and do more digital product, more direct sales, and generally just find a way to keep the games that we've made selling while at the exact same time making brand new games to keep sending to the factory so that we would have new games to sell 6 months to a year from now.
Why in Gelatinous did you make it so the gelatinous cubes had to be 3s?
Just a completely arbitrary and random number. The 3 has no meaning whatsoever.
Except it's odd.
But I guess gelatinous cubes would be odd things.
They would. You've definitely put a lot more thought into the number 3 than I did. No, I was looking for something that would be relatively easy for people looking at the table. Because when you roll the dice and you're trying to process that in your head, the 1s are super easy to see. And the 6s are really easy to see. And after that, it could have been 3, it could have been 4. I don't think that 5 would have been a good choice because I don't know, just my gut tells me 5 wouldn't have worked.
That's just one that would just be a thing that wouldn't do anything.
5 kind of looks like 6 or 4.
A bit, yeah. And the 3 with the diagonal pattern on the 3 pips makes it just easy to spot.
Why did you guys come up with the theme for Gelatinous? Like, what gave you that idea for a Gelatinous cube?
Oh, that is a classic fantasy role-playing game monster going back to the 1970s. And the Gelatinous game is more an excuse to sell a bunch of green glitter dice than anything else. And what's cooler for green glitter than a Gelatinous cube? It's just a fun, silly theme.
Did you see my teaching of it?
I did. That was wonderful. Thank you.
It's also his favorite game.
We shared that. Oh, that's fantastic. We shared that with all of our social media followers because it is a very good job. Thank you so much for that.
It's also really cute.
It is, yes. It was a very well done video. I think anybody watching that video definitely knows what the game is about and how to play. Mm-hmm. If you enjoy Gelatinous, you should search for a game called Tenzi. That's another dice stacking game, and it's a speed game. Whereas in Gelatinous, you're trading the dice and going through rounds. Tenzi is just everybody has dice, and you're rolling and stacking, and you want to get a tower of 10 dice stacked up.
That can be kind of hard. Your tower might fall.
With me, it falls a lot.
But can you just restack it, or if it falls, you have to re-roll?
You're going to have that discussion with the other players at the table. We're always nice about it, and if you make a mistake, it's like, all right, you made a mistake. But some people I've talked to, but I don't want to play with, are very mean, and they're like, if you knock it over, you got to try again.
Do you have any other dice games that you really like?
I do. There's a game called Yahtzee Free for All that I like a lot because the box is a big hexagon that opens up, and you're trying to take cards from the other players as you roll the dice. But then that game Hasbro took and turned into a game called Yahtzee Steal the Deal that I like a lot more because it is a tiny, tiny little package. Actually, I am going to show you. I have multiple copies of this game because I like it so much.
It's so tiny.
It's very, very tiny, and it's a little plastic box. And inside the box, you get 5 of these dice.
Whoa.
And these dice are beautiful.
They look like they have some kind of throwing star or flower on them.
So I was actually at a factory in China, I think it was 2012, walking through their dice section when I found these dice. And at the time, I didn't know where they came from, but these are what are known as double injection. You see the orange color on the edges.
Mm-hmm.
So those orange bits and the core of this die are an orange plastic. And then they inject the black plastic around that. And that's what gives them this look. It's a more expensive process, but it looks incredible.
Has it ever happened where you roll it and like the table, like the orange catches on the table or something, and you get like, instead of just one side face up, you get 2 sides face up?
No, because it is perfectly smooth. The molds are designed so that the black and the orange are perfectly even. And the way dice are made, after they come out of the machine, the big tooling machine, they're on sprues. Almost, you've seen model kits where you have to cut off the plastic pieces and assemble things. Dice come out of the machine just like that on big sprues, and they have to break them all off. And then what they do is they take the dice and run it through a tumbler to polish it and smooth up all the edges. And that's also what gives dice the kind of shiny sheen that you see on them.
That makes the sound of making dice a lot cooler.
So if you ever get the chance to go to a dice factory, it is absolutely worth doing. It's amazing. And the tumbling process is actually a couple of steps. There's one that's just designed to get all of the hard edges off. Like when it's on that sprue, I wish I had some sprue dice, and it snaps off. There's like a little nub where that sprue was, so they have to tumble it in order to wear that all off. And then there's another process that comes after that is the polishing, and that's what gives it the shine. I think it was that same trip when I also ran across a bunch of dice that had already been through the smoothing stage, but not the polishing stage. And those dice had almost like a matte finish to them. They didn't have that crazy sheen. So when we made a game called Hipster Dice, I told the factory for one of the dice, don't do the polishing step, because I wanted to keep that very matte finish. And it looks neat. It makes the die a little more unique than what you usually see.
So all the dice were like that, or just one of them?
I think it was just one of the 5 different dice.
And is that like a dice you don't want to get, or is it just?
No, it's neat. It's just a different look for dice.
What's the weirdest, most random part of a manufacturing process that you've seen?
The absolute weirdest experience I've had in a factory that makes games was a wood factory where they make meeples and wooden cubes and wooden boxes, just all kinds of things. And so when we go to China, we drive from factory to factory, and the drives are like between 3 and 6 hours long. They're very tiring. And we stop at this wood factory that I've never been to before, and we pull up, and they're walking us through the place, and we're seeing how everything is made, and we come around a corner, and there is a giant tree just in the middle of the factory, just laying in this pit. And we asked them, like, what is this? And it was a tree that they had bought that had been submerged in a lake for like decades. And it was in this pit so they could dry it out to get that wood and be able to actually use it. And I don't know whatever came of it. It looked to me like the wood would have been totally worthless, just it was so waterlogged and old. But they seemed to think that there was value in it. And I don't know enough about wood to know what value they saw in it. But it was a very bizarre experience to just see like a massive, like giant tree laying in the middle of a factory. So I'd never seen anything like that.
My experience with wood has been, if it's old and wet, it will break easily.
That was my thinking as well, but they must have some value out of it. And this was a wood factory that didn't just do games; they just did wooden products. So I don't know. I don't know. It was weird.
What got you into playing games?
When I was younger, about 5 or 6, I started playing card games with my parents, and Yahtzee. We played a lot of Yahtzee. We moved to Turkey when I was in the 1st grade, and it was in Turkey that I started playing chess and just learning more. And then it's probably 84 or 85 with my first real experience with Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games. I got a Zaxxon board game for Christmas that is a horrible game, but I was fascinated by it and thought it was very cool at the time. And over the second half of the 80s, like junior high, high school, I played more and more and more games. I just spent a lot of my time with friends in evenings and weekends playing games, to the point that I eventually started making games. There was no direct path from I play a lot of games to I make games. And the only reason I make games at the time is because I learned how to do layout and graphic design, and I did newspaper and magazine design, and then that led to a job at Steve Jackson Games.
What advice do you have for someone who wants to be part of the board game industry?
Well, you're already a part of the board game industry, so you may want to actually turn that around at some point and give your own advice on what it's like to be a part of the board game industry. But I would say the most important thing is to figure out what you love the most about games. It's such a large field that you can do everything from like game reviews or tutorials, if you're a person who likes to just share your opinions on things or to teach people, to artwork, or if you want to get into actually making games, the best advice I can give is make games. You're going to make some horrible, horrible games, but you're going to learn from that. And a lot of times, a bad game is going to have one little bitty tiny piece in it that you realize is the core of a much better game. I don't think I gave you a good answer, but I hope I gave you something to think about.
It was an okay answer.
Yeah, you're being very kind.
And how do you respond if someone gives you a great idea, but you can't use it for something? Like the other day, one of my friends gave me an idea for part of my game, but it didn't fit with the theme. And I didn't want to say no, but I couldn't say yes.
Saying no is hard, but you're going to have to learn to say no. What you could have done in that instance was encourage them to take their idea and make their own game, rather than just say, no, I don't like that. But instead, that's a neat idea that doesn't work for my game. Why don't you make a game and we'll play it?
What if someone gives you a game that they want you to publish and it's a really good game, but it doesn't fit with the themes that you normally have?
What we do is suggest some of our publisher friends who we think may be a better fit for that, or we'll say, do you mind giving us your contact information, and do you mind if we share it with somebody else? And then I'll call or email somebody I know and say, hey, I got to look at this. It's not for us. I thought maybe it would work for you. The entire game industry is very friendly. We're competitors in a lot of ways, but we also share information constantly. We talk to each other, and the success of another publisher in no way harms us, and it's kind of cool to see your friends succeed. So if there's a neat game that isn't for us, the first thing I'll do is make sure that somebody I know who I think would be a better fit knows about this game.
And what if nobody else has a fit for the game that works like right with it? Or like if they don't have a time for it, do you like ask if they're okay with you changing the theme to fit with your type of game?
We don't take outside submissions very often anymore because we have so many game ideas of our own. But in the past, when we were open to outside submissions, we would regularly tweak themes here and there to better fit our own market.
The last question we usually ask is, what is the most surprising or exciting thing about working in the board game industry?
I think the most surprising thing for me has been how open and friendly everybody is. When I started in the board game industry, I knew some people already because I had been doing some freelance work before that, but I never expected so many people working at other companies to just be so friendly and generous with their time, their experience, their advice. I've learned as much just working for Steve Jackson as I have meeting and talking to other people in the industry who have done this, both people who've been in the industry longer than me and people who've been in the industry a shorter time. It's a very friendly, close community. And back when we went to conventions all the time, it wasn't uncommon for many of us to just check in and see, like, how are you doing? And just, it's a very friendly group, which shouldn't surprise me so much because we are making games which are fun and meant to get people together. But the previous industry I worked in doing the newspaper and magazine design was the agriculture industry, which is a far more formal and dull, and you just, even when you met other people, it was always business. Whereas in the game industry, it just feels like, yes, business is happening, but you're getting time with friends.
We end our interviews with some would you rathers. Can we ask you some?
Yes.
Would you rather always have to feel like you have to sneeze, or would you rather have everything touch you tickle?
That would kind of mean you're always tickling if you're wearing a shirt all the time.
Yes, everything that touches you tickles. I really think I'd prefer feeling like I have to sneeze.
Why would you prefer that more?
I think it would be easier to get used to and still be able to function than everything touching you tickling. But it may just be because I live in
you couldn't
Texas.
wear glasses.
You couldn't wear glasses, which for me is a big deal. I can't see without these. But I've lived in Texas for over 20 years, and the allergies are so bad here. I think half the day I already feel like I have to sneeze all the time anyway. So the transition wouldn't be that great.
Yeah.
Would you rather walk a tightrope between two tall buildings or jump from one high trapeze to another between buildings? Obviously, no net.
Jump from one trapeze to the other trapeze.
Why would you do that?
Because it's over. You make the jump, you're done. It's a much faster experience. And I feel like there's less time to overthink it and make a mistake.
Instead of like walking on a tightrope, you go really slowly and something can happen.
Yeah, and you're thinking about it the entire time. Whereas if you just jump, you may think about it for a while as you fall, but it's going to be over faster. Do you have time for some questions? What do you want to do when you grow up?
Make more games.
I want to make more games, but I also really want to be an engineer.
Okay.
I want to be a game maker, an artist, an actor, and a photographer.
You're already pretty much all of those things.
You should keep doing all those things. It'll be fun.
Not fully a game maker. I haven't made my first game fully yet.
You'll get there. It just takes time. And remember, you're going to make bad games. That's just part of the process. But you're going to learn from the bad games and then make some great games.
But the only good thing is at least getting them out there.
Yes. And it's a lot easier. I remember the mid-'80s, when I first started trying to make my own games, we didn't have the tools that we do today. So I was using like a manual typewriter to type things out a lot of times. And now it's much easier. And on top of that, you can get high quality, professional looking prototypes faster and cheaper than you ever could before. There's a site called Board Games Maker where you can upload files to create card decks or custom dice or die cut pieces and order as few as one copy. and then have a really nice, attractive copy to play with. I used that, actually, the Gelatinous game. The earliest playtest sessions of that, after some experimentation, was me ordering a deck of cards, because the early version of Gelatinous, every player had a card, and it told them which number they would stack. So every player at the table actually had a different target number and different instructions, and it was just way too complicated. So after a couple rounds like that, we're like, no, this is dumb, and then we simplified.
Do you have any other questions for us?
Are you enjoying this?
Yes.
Excellent. That's what matters the most. I'm glad you're having a good time. And it's good to see your videos. Like, it looks like you're attracting more of an audience, and you're getting out there. And maybe in the future, if we can start going to conventions again, we'll see you at a show.
Yeah. Thanks for letting us interview you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for hanging out with us in this episode of Kidtalk.
Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.
See you later. Bye.